When Sister Benedetta saw that luminous figure in the center of her cell, she immediately understood that her life would never be the same again. The presence was sweet and solemn, the face of a man that the entire world had known but that few had truly understood. Pope Benedict XVI smiled at her, wrapped in a mysterious light. His white habit seemed to shine with an interior light, while his gaze, though serene, bore the signs of a soul that had known the weight of the cross. What the nun was about to hear would shake the church to its foundations. It was the second part of the Pope's spiritual testament, his final message, the one that had never been made public. What it revealed was shocking: betrayals, conspiracies, and a silent struggle between good and evil within the secret rooms of the Vatican. It was the evening of February 2, 2023 when Sister Benedetta was kneeling in her cell. The day had been long and the Candlemas Mass had deeply moved her. The scent of incense still hung in the air and the candles she had lit before the icon of the Virgin Mary cast dancing shadows on the stone walls. But she never imagined that on that very night she would be entrusted with such a burdensome task. When she looked up, she saw him. Pope Benedict XVI was before her, serene and luminous. His gaze, while exuding sweetness, revealed the weight of unspeakable suffering. It was as if time had stopped, as if that visit was destined to change the course of history. "Right, my daughter. What I have to tell you must be known." The nun's hands were shaking, but she obediently took up pen and paper. So she began to transcribe every word, knowing that those revelations would be burning. Pope Benedict told of how, during the last years of his life, he was forced into a gilded prison. "The world believed that I had resigned. But the truth is that I was forced to do so. Threatened, isolated, poisoned little by little. I could not speak openly, so I chose to communicate through my writings, hoping that someone could interpret them." Sister Benedetta started. The Pope's voice was firm, but full of pain. "I was prevented from proclaiming the dogma of the co-redemption of Mary. The plan was clear: to empty the Church of its deepest truth, to corrupt it from within. Those who plotted against me now reign supreme, but their time will run out." The nun felt her heart beating forcefully in her chest. The Pope spoke of orders received from above for his elimination, of a man dressed in white who smiled at him falsely, of burned documents and secrets kept in the corridors of power. "I ask you, Benedetta, to spread this writing. Do not fear the repercussions. The truth must emerge." When the nun finished writing, Benedict XVI looked at her with paternal affection. "Now my task is done. I am at peace." A delicate scent of violets spread through the room. The figure of the Pope dissolved softly into the light. Sister Benedetta remained alone. The tears that streamed down her face were of pain and gratitude. She stood up shakily and walked over to the window. The sky was dotted with stars, and for a moment she thought she heard an angelic choir on the wind. She had a mission, and she was ready to carry it out. But the story did not end there. In the days that followed, Sister Benedetta found herself immersed in a whirlwind of thoughts and questions. As she walked along the cold and silent corridors of the convent, the Pope's words came back to her mind. Every sentence, every nuance of that message was like a cryptic clue, a piece of a puzzle that had to be carefully reconstructed. In those moments of solitude, the silence around her seemed vibrant, almost full of omens. The air, fresh and pungent, reminded her that every decision, however difficult, could be the spark of a spiritual and moral revolution. She began to write further notes, trying to connect Benedict's revelations with the secret details she had noticed during her prayers and meditations. Her faith guided her, but her rational mind urged her to look for evidence, not to blindly trust a vision, no matter how intense and sincere. She arranged clandestine meetings with trusted people, who shared her deep sense of justice and desire for truth. Among them was Father Marco, a priest who had lived in close contact with Vatican institutions for decades and who, despite his official role, had long harbored doubts and silent regrets about hidden truths. One evening, in a small, secluded cloister, Sister Benedetta and Father Marco met. The crackling of the fire in the fireplace and the smell of burning wood accompanied their conversation. "It is not only a question of faith," said the priest in a grave tone, but of conscience and truth. What you have written could rewrite the history of the Church, but also change the destiny of millions of souls." In a low, sincere voice, the nun admitted, "I am afraid, Father Marco. Afraid of the consequences, but also of the loneliness that often follows the choice to tell the truth. And yet, I cannot remain silent." The priest nodded, knowing the weight of that choice. We must act with cunning and with the certainty that the light, sooner or later, will triumph over the darkness. Every secret, every shadow, will eventually be revealed. Meanwhile, the dark forces within the Vatican had not remained idle. Behind closed doors, in impenetrable-looking offices, men and women of power watched with growing uneasiness as rumors and suspicions arose. Some of them, tied to old privileges and intrigues, feared that the past might be revealed, undermining the delicate balance of power. Documents were disappearing, telephone calls were tapped, and an ever-tightening network of surveillance extended beyond the walls of the Holy See. The struggle for control of the soul of the Church was reaching the point of no return. Sister Benedetta then decided to travel, undercover, to seek out further testimonies and connect the threads of that mysterious intrigue. Her journey took her to ancient monasteries hidden in the mountains, to forgotten libraries where secret manuscripts told stories of forbidden revelations, and even into contact with former members of the Vatican high hierarchy, disillusioned and ready to share their version of the facts. In each place, she found fragments of truth that, put together, painted a disturbing and complex picture. The Church, so venerated and respected, hid within itself ancient wounds, betrayals that had taken root over time and hidden powers that sought to manipulate the faith of the faithful. During one such meeting, in an old, abandoned cloister in a silent countryside, Sister Benedetta came face to face with an elderly woman, a former Vatican secretary who had witnessed secrets no one could ever have imagined. With a trembling voice, the old woman spoke of sleepless nights spent in a secret room, where such heartwarming documents were discussed in stone-cold whispers. It was not just a plan against a man, she confessed, but against the very essence of faith. They tried to erase the most ancient truths, to silence those whispers that spoke of hope, redemption, and unconditional love. Those stories made Sister Benedetta shiver, but they also gave her new strength. She knew that the path was risky, but her mission had taken on an almost epic dimension, a call to bring to light what had been buried for too long. The following nights, while the silence of the convent was broken only by the rustling of the pages of her notes, the nun felt she was at the center of a storm that could overwhelm everything she had ever known. Every encounter, every confession, seemed to add a piece to the great mosaic of truth. And yet, the risk was always present, the shadow of revenge, the fear of the consequences. But it was precisely in that awareness that her strength resided, the courage of those who know that, however dark the night, the rising of the sun is inevitable. As time passed inexorably, Sister Benedetta secretly organized a communication network, entrusting copies of the Spiritual Testament to trusted people scattered around the world. These allies, some young and bold, others veteran and wise, committed themselves to spreading the message. Thus began to emerge signs of a silent revolution. Small communities of believers, tired of an opaque authority, began to question the truths hidden behind the walls of power. The word truth took on a new meaning, no longer just an abstract concept, but a living force, capable of uniting hearts and minds in a fight against injustice. In a remote corner of an ancient city, on a rainy night, a young theological scholar, inspired by the secret accounts, organized a meeting in an old library. There, among dusty shelves and yellowed manuscripts, the vibrant voice of hope was heard. "We can no longer hide the truth," he said fervently. "The light of Pope Benedict must illuminate even the deepest darkness." That speech set off a series of events that involved even leading figures in academia, investigative journalists, and even some brave people within the ecclesiastical hierarchy itself.